Did you know that a recent study showed that approximately 7 out of 10 Americans live paycheck to paycheck? Chances are that the majority of you watching are living paycheck to paycheck, and just like the title of this video says, I'm going to show you how to get out of that vicious cycle with 7 simple steps to stop living paycheck to paycheck. Number 1, believe that you can do it. Before you can even begin trying to break away from living paycheck to paycheck, you need to believe that it's possible to do it. If you're saying things like, I can't stop living paycheck to paycheck because of this or that, then you've voluntarily chained yourself. In fact, did you know that out of that 70% who live paycheck to paycheck, 62% of them make between $50,000 to $100,000 a year as income? This is already a lot of money, and most people who take more financial responsibility can get by with this amount. However, psychologically placing yourself in the mindset of being able to do it, you need to desire this change by making it the change you want most in your life. This means you need to realistically address what you want more. Do you want to continuously barely get by every month in hopes that nothing changes to destroy the balance? Or do you want to start saving to make your life more grounded and easier in the long run? The first option seems tempting, but becomes less so when you realize that the life you can have can so easily be derailed from one instance. For example, if you lose your job, what happens then? You lost a huge part of your income that's necessary to your current living and have to make major changes while you're depressed from losing your job. However, a small change would allow you to save an emergency fund and continue to live your life without an earned income because you're prepared. Number 2, owning less is a good thing. There are 2 sides to this coin. Firstly, owning less isn't a step back, but a step forward. And secondly, you probably spend a lot more on non-essentials than you think. Touching on the first point, it feels like you're losing something when you think about buying fewer things for yourself, right? Like reducing the amount you spend on groceries or avoiding purchases on Amazon. But we usually buy to have an experience. Funnily enough, owning less allows us to have more experiences with our friends and family by spending more time with them as opposed to spending money. This leads to the second point, which is that when you actually look at what you spend objectively, you'll see just how much you spend on things that you don't really need. For example, that new shirt at the store when you already have 15 shirts, or an eyeglasses cleaner when you can make one from soap and water. When you lower the amount you spend and own less, you'll find that you have so much more money at the end of every month and are generally a happier person. Let us know in the comments below how owning less has impacted you. Number 3, check your finances. It's integral to understand where you stand financially to break away from paycheck to paycheck living. That means understanding your income and expenses. You don't need to be obsessed with tracking your expenses, but you should generally know what to expect month to month. The easiest way to do this is to subtract your income from your fixed expenses, or things that you have to pay for every month. What's left over is either how much you can save if you're in the negative, or what lifestyle changes you need to make to get out of the negative. Number 4, put your savings into a different account. I don't know about you, but having my savings too easily accessible makes it easier to dip into it. I find that having my savings in a different account, where I only put in money once a month or bi-weekly, allows me to save up well without constantly thinking about it. I know that money goes in and that it's accumulating, and I only check it once or twice a year to see how it's growing. You need to save to break out of paycheck to paycheck living, and treating it like a fixed expense really helps. Do you have a separate savings account? Like the video if you do. Number 5, do a no-spend month. It's amazing to think how much you can save with a no-spend month. In fact, you can likely save close to $1,000 by reducing your spending to only the essentials. This is a pretty difficult task, but it's one that is very eye-opening. Not only will you realize that you can do it, but you'll also see just how much you spend on things you don't really need to spend. Number 6, don't be afraid to consider drastic changes. Change is a constant in life, and you shouldn't be afraid to make them to stop living paycheck to paycheck. For example, if you find that you're struggling to get by every month and you realize you're spending close to 50% of your income on your home, then it's a good idea to consider a different living situation to drop that number further. There's absolutely nothing wrong with change, and realistically, the more you can acknowledge your situation and admit you need to change, the higher your chances are of starting to build actual wealth regardless of your income. Number 7, be kind and patient with yourself. This isn't an easy thing to do, and it's not going to happen overnight, so be patient with yourself when you make mistakes or struggle with saving well. It's going to happen, and failure is the only way to learn. Something that I found useful is to make sure you have a good support system to not only hold you accountable, but to help you grow in those difficult times. Someone who's willing to lend a helping hand. Speaking of helping hands, consider subscribing to Investors Weekly to have a helping hand on amazing ways to save your money and live frugally, so you can manage your money in the best way possible.